one, I'm going to go over 3 multiple choice questions about lipids. And with these questions, I'm going to go over an easy one, a medium one, and a hard one. The reason why I'm going over 3 different levels of difficulty is to show students what the progression of knowledge or thinking about a question might look like. So typically a biology student might see the first and second question on a test, and then like an AP biology student might see the second and third question on a test. With that being said, let's just jump right into it. All right, so here's the easy question. Which characteristic is unique to lipids? So for this question, I'm already thinking, what is a good characteristic that defines lipids? And remember that lipids have a lot of these carbons and hydrogens in their chemical makeup, and that makes them very nonpolar. And when they're nonpolar, that makes them hydrophobic. So I'm looking for something that deals with that, and it's going to be pretty obvious to me since this is an easier question. They are made of repeating monomers. Note, that's pretty much the same for all macromolecules. They store genetic information. Nope, that's going to be nucleic acids, so that one's out. They are hydrophobic. We just talked about that. That seems like the answer, but let's make sure. D, they fold into specific 3-dimensional shapes. Nope, that's proteins. We can scratch that one out. And then E, they contain nitrogen. That's false. Lipids don't contain nitrogen. They just contain carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. So the right answer and the correct answer is C. You can see that this question didn't make me really think deeply about the answer. It's just kind of like a rote memorization question where it's just asking for something very simple. Here's our medium question. The difference between a phospholipid and a triglyceride is that the phospholipid and then the answers. So before I even look at the answers, I'm going to try to reason through this myself. So remember that a phospholipid looks like this, and these are fatty acid tails. Now a triglyceride looks like this, where again, these are fatty acid tails, but there's 3 of them. There's only 2 here. And one thing you have to remember is that in the phospholipids, there is a phosphate group right here that replaces one of the fatty acids. So this is a little bit deeper content to memorize, but it's still something you might probably see on a test. So I'm looking for that the answer is going to be dealing with the phospholipid and saying there's a phosphate group instead of the third fatty acid. So A contains 3 fatty acids. That's true for triglycerides, but not for phospholipids. So I'm going to scratch that off. B contains a polar phosphate group replacing 1 fatty acid. That sounds like the answer, but I'm not just going to go with it. Remember that these phosphate groups are made of phosphorus atom and 3 oxygen atoms, so they would be polar. So C has all non-polar components. Nope, that doesn't sound right. I don't like that answer. I'm scratching it out. D, functions mainly in energy storage. So that's talking about the triglyceride, not the phospholipid, so I'm scratching that one out. And then E, contains peptide bonds instead of ester bonds. No, peptide bonds are found in proteins, not the answer. So we're going to go with B, and that is the right answer. Here's our last question. This is the hard one. Which characteristic best explains why lipids function well as long-term energy storage molecules? Remember we just talked about how these triglycerides are made of a glycerol molecule, and then these things called fatty acids. Now those fatty acids are basically long chains of carbons and hydrogens, and they store energy, at least long-term energy, really well for humans and any animal. So what we're going to look for is that the answer is going to deal with these carbons and hydrogens. So let's take a look. A, they contain more oxygen atoms than carbohydrates. No, they actually contain less oxygen atoms than carbohydrates. So that one's actually not even true, so we're going to scratch that one out. B, they can dissolve easily in blood plasma for rapid transport. I didn't talk about that, but I don't think that's the answer. I'm still going to scratch it out because I don't like that as an answer. C, they are made of highly reduced hydrocarbon chains made with many carbons and hydrogens. Yeah, that sounds like what I talked about. So let's see if D and E can be crossed out. D, they are quickly metabolized through glycolysis. Nope, that's actually going to be glucose. Now, these will actually feed into cellular respiration. So you can see like this part here, that's going to be fed into cellular respiration, but it's usually going to be fed into the Krebs cycle. And we probably haven't gone over this because this is a unit 1 material, but the Krebs cycle gets fed into these, or these 2 carbon molecules get fed into the Krebs cycle. Last one, E. They form rigid structures that resist enzymatic breakdown. Note that wouldn't be very good for the long-term storage because then we couldn't use them. So the correct answer here is C. They are made of highly reduced hydrocarbon chains with many carbon to hydrogen bonds.